All right. As Sir David Frost might say, hello, good evening and welcome. Thank you for taking time out of your day, particularly at the end of a long one, to come along to what I hope will be an interesting presentation. My name is Mark Jackson. I look after the technology business here at Hill & Knowlton. The format for tonight is a short presentation. I promise I'll keep it short, followed by a formal Q&A, and then an opportunity to network, have another glass of wine if you wish, a bite to eat, and maybe ask some informal questions if you wish as well. Before we get into the survey itself, I just want to tell you a little bit about how we did it and what we were trying to achieve. The survey was commissioned and run in March and April this year. The information we give you tonight is incredibly current. We carried out 420 interviews in 4 countries: UK, Canada, US and China. And we did it online, we did it face-to-face, and we did it via telephone. We looked at large enterprises and we looked at SMBs too. And we also split it out so that we could look at C-suite, the IT C-suite, i.e. the chief technology officers, and senior IT managers as well. And our goal was really to answer the age-old question: what and who influences the people that determine how our businesses run, i.e. our customers. So if you like, another way of putting it is applying a bit of science to what is really a quite unscientific discipline. So the first part, I just want to quickly look at what it is that makes decision makers shortlist and eventually get down to the final decision. Looking at the criteria for shortlisting, I think the key thing here is that PR can help out with most of these. If you look from the left, the first 5 categories or so, we can all pretty much help with. Superior product services, superior customer service, credibility, obviously something we can help with a lot. But what I would say, and you'll see this throughout the presentation, is that previous positive experience is really critical, whether it's in shortlisting or whether it's in the final decision-making process. And as PR people, I think that opens up a number of questions for us. Do we have access to all the bodies? Do we know the problems that exist in our organisation so we can understand the problems that might occur in the future? Because if customers are having problems, do we really understand what those are and how we can help solve those problems? Internal recommendations, specifically in the UK, are incredibly high. In fact, they're the highest criteria for shortlisting anywhere in the world amongst the 4 countries that we interviewed. For example, in Canada, it was just 60%, and in China, 23%. Now, I think that says more about the maturity of the IT market in the UK than it does anything else. And if you break it down and look at C-suite versus IT managers, there is very little variance in these numbers, apart from sales, marketing and collateral materials, that kind of stuff, where 43% of C-suite said that they relied on it as a key criteria, and just 25% of IT managers. I think that demonstrates the cynicism that we know is attached to IT managers. So when it comes to criteria for the final decision, previous positive experiences are absolutely critical. We've talked about this already. It will be a recurrent theme, I promise you, and I try not to bore you senseless with it. In the UK, 26% of people said it was a critical criteria for making the final decision. That's the highest amongst the 4 countries we surveyed. The average was about 19%. Interestingly, credibility and reputation of the supplier was also ranked highest globally in the UK compared to the other markets that we surveyed. One of the things I think that we should take out of this is what's on the far right of the graph. Those in Marcoms, or those of you with colleagues in Marcoms, this is probably not the slide to be showing you. I will say just one thing about the rest of the world, which is that globally this is roughly representative. So UK was roughly the same as US, was roughly the same as Canada. In China, the key criteria is product features, service features. And I suppose if we think about the maturity of the market, that doesn't come as a great surprise. So breaking it down, criteria for final decision amongst C-suite and non-IT C-suite, we'll find that previous positive experience is incredibly important. Alongside, does it do what it says on the tin? I mean, that should be a given, right? We're out there selling products and services. If it doesn't do what we say it's going to do, clearly people are going to have problems with that. But previous experiences are going to be absolutely important. So in summary, where we've got to so far, previous experiences are incredibly important. at all stages of the decision-making process, and particularly so for the IT C-suite, i.e. the CTO. Where do these people get their information? And most importantly, which is most influential? Now, those of you who are with Forrester, this may come as a good chart to show. Industry analyst coverage, and that's in the form of consultancies, published reports and so on, is incredibly important. Interestingly, this is the UK number. In the US, this equated to 66%. So the UK is somewhat lower in its regard for analyst reports, and we'll focus on that in a little more detail in just a while. One of the things that struck me here was the lack of credibility and the lack of use of internet sites. And I thought that was quite interesting. In Canada, that number's 50%. And I think, again, it shows some of the cynicism that goes with marketing materials. The stuff we stick on websites, well, of course we would say that, wouldn't we? Now, perhaps we would only say that in the UK. The other thing I would mention is that in none of these sources of information do we outrank any of our global colleagues. So, for example, in the US, I mentioned industry analyst coverage ranked 66%. And I think that shows that we like to take a broad range of information from as wide a variety of sources as possible before we narrow down our choices.